Hi everyone, Ryan Smith at Better Life Carolinas again. In our last session, we talked a bit about men's health and this idea of andropause or andro decline. And I thought this time we could talk about how it relates more directly to chronic disease that we see often in adulthood. In particular, I'm talking about metabolic disease. That's kind of an umbrella term that describes a lot of things, but let's, for example, throw in type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, hypertension or high blood pressure, all these risk factors that can be associated with obesity and overall that increase the risk for heart disease. So that's what we're covering under this umbrella term, metabolic disease. So what do we know about the decline in testosterone that most men experience and that effect on the risk for metabolic disease? Well, first off, we know that testosterone promotes glucose uptake by your cells. It helps your cells take in blood sugar from the circulation, and in turn it helps to promote sensitivity to insulin. Insulin is another hormone that helps your cells it unlocks the door and allows blood sugar to go into cells. Testosterone promotes that effect, and that's a very important effect. Without that, we are predisposed to higher levels of blood sugar, and that can lead to what we call insulin resistance, which is the early stages of diabetes. We know from population studies that there's an inverse relationship between testosterone levels and glucose and insulin levels. So the lower our testosterone, generally speaking, the higher our glucose and our insulin levels. In other words, low testosterone is predictive of type 2 diabetes. We also know that low testosterone is a risk factor for weight gain. This seems to be a bi-directional relationship, meaning low testosterone promotes weight gain seems to correlate with low testosterone. So it probably works in both directions, and it's a complex relationship. Lastly, we know from other population studies that the prevalence of low testosterone appears to increase as hallmarks for metabolic disease rises. So what happens if we replace testosterone or optimize testosterone levels? How does that affect these risks for metabolic disease? Let me editorialize for a moment on what I mean by optimal testosterone levels. What I'm really referring to is a testosterone level that mimics the level that you may have had when you were in your 20s and 30s, a time when you were at your peak performance as an adult. If we can mimic that, if we can help your testosterone levels reach similar levels, then we are optimizing the likelihood that you experience these benefits, the positive functions that testosterone has in your body, particularly in your mood and your mentation and in your physical capabilities. This optimal level of testosterone is not necessarily what the lab may refer to as the normal range. What we find the normal range to be is quite different from what we consider the optimal range to be. By the same token, we're also not talking about supraphysiologic levels of testosterone. We are not considering pushing your testosterone to levels that it never achieved when you were in your teens, 20s, and 30s. We're really talking about finding the sweet spot, this area where you achieve the best benefits of testosterone in a way that's safe for you. So what happens then if we can raise your testosterone to an optimal level when it comes to metabolic disease? Well, we see in lab studies a decrease in the markers that are associated with insulin resistance. For example, we see a decrease in glycosylated hemoglobin, or hemoglobin A1C, which is a reflection of blood sugar control over an extended period of time. We see decreases in fasting blood sugar. We see decreases in LDL cholesterol, and we can see decreases in visceral fat, or abdominal fat, which is the type of fat that's most highly associated with metabolic disease. In general, we see a decrease in overall body fat with testosterone replacement therapy. A notable 5-year study showed progressive and sustainable weight loss with testosterone replacement. So because of the importance of obesity and diabetes in our society, and because of the risk that they pose for heart disease, I think it's important that we consider the role that hormones play in our risk for these things. Think about having your hormones evaluated in the context of your overall health and what it might mean for your risk for long-term disease. I think this is a tool that we are just beginning to appreciate, and it can have meaningful and lasting effects on your overall health if we can optimize your testosterone levels.